All right. Got that record running. That's what's always fun about these pre-records. I never know if the recording is actually working. So with the audio could be fucked up, the video could be fucked up. I got no idea. Anyway, the modestly dressed women on your screen this week. It's winter. It's supposed to be very cold this weekend, so a big shout out here to the Eskimo community. I have these Eskimo women, Inuit women in traditional garb. I hope this video doesn't get spiked because I use the word Eskimo. But proud Inuit women in traditional garb holding up an infant, raising him in the ways of the Inuit people. Beautiful. Just a beautiful part of, are they from Alaska? North American culture. I think Canada and Alaska. I got no fucking clue. North American culture. Anyway, we are pre-recorded this week, potentially pre-recorded next week as well. And I realize that lately there have been more and more pre-records. The reason for that is obviously it's a Friday 8 o'clock show. I started doing it Friday at 8 while everything was still locked down. Now that things are open, I have a life. There are things to get to, but I still want there to be an 8 o'clock show because I know there will also be Fridays where I'm just chilling at home and I could very well do a show at 8 o'clock. So for now, we'll keep it there. If things change, maybe it gets moved, but I still like the idea of having a show rolling Friday at 8 o'clock because, a lot of times if you're in your fucking 30s, sometimes Friday night, you don't want to do shit. You're just like, fuck it. I just want to sit around. And I get that. I like a little bit of that. I love a Friday night where all I do is do the live stream at 8 and then sit on my ass watching Bill Maher and eat a steak. That's lovely. But, you do have to go out and mingle with the other fucking human beings. You know what I mean? We did 3, was it 2? How long was everything actually locked down? 2020 to what? Maybe early 2022. So I think it was about 2 years of like where it was tough to really go out and do shit. Like you could, but it was eating in a fucking shed on the sidewalk. So you got to socialize. Anyway, we're here right now, pre-recording, pouring myself a little coffee so I have fuel for the evening ahead. With a bottle of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Terramana tequila over on the bar, ready to go. If you are watching, I would love you to tell some people that if they like a nice modestly dressed woman on a Friday night, they can check out the stream. YouTube at Mike's Golden Streams, or just search Sacktap Live. You might be able to hear the furnace running in the background. It's getting chilly outside again, hence the Inuit women. You can find me on social media, Twitter at Mike Montone, Instagram at Gary_Moyler, Moyler. Where else? Facebook.com/The Savage Crew. And if you need something to read while you're taking a shit, once in a while I do some blogging, so MeatheadMedia.com. You can check that out. And tell your friends if they're into any of the stuff I just mentioned, that they can check it out too. We'd love to have them. We just crested the 700 subscriber point on YouTube. Very exciting, very special. And what do you say? We do a little show here? Lots to talk about. It has been some time since we've checked in on current events, and this week that is exactly what we shall do. Bloodsports, butt plugs, and major developments in the Idaho murder case coming up in tonight's edition of Sacktap Live. The pre-record starts right now.
You're listening to the Savage Sacktap. It's not a podcast. It's not a half-cast. It's just a quick shot to the balls to help you finish off the week. We're cutting through the bullshit, filling your Friday with rage-fueled logic, and cracking a few jokes along the way. So grab a bag of frozen peas. There's a Savage Sacktap coming your way.
Smooth, lascivious, salacious, outrageous.
Wow, that furnace is fucking hissing. Not much I can do about it, folks. That is studio apartment life. Anyway, let me get these fine, modestly dressed women out of here. Though, don't worry, they'll be back. If you're a regular, you know the deal. They'll be back at the end of the show. If you're new to the program, the modestly dressed women do return. Of course, if you're wondering why we're worshiping at the altar of modestly dressed women, it's because in the past we used to celebrate women with large breasts, massive heaving bosoms, but for some reason the fascists, I'm sorry, the we were corrected. I was shown the error of my ways, and I realized that I shouldn't be objectifying a woman's body like that on this show, and that that part of a woman's body is for her husband's eyes only, and that is the way Allah wants it, and it is a sacred thing, and that's exactly what we shall do, and we shall honor Allah's wishes. So anyway, I'm Mike Montone. This is the Savage Sacktap. By the way, if you're not in Bones Coffee Company, fucking rules. This isn't a big enough show to have any kind of paid sponsorship. I just really like this coffee. So if you're into coffee, check out Bones. They have all sorts of flavored coffees, and also like good, well-sourced blends and shit, if you're one of those coffee snob people. And some nice mugs over there too. Anyway, I was in ShopRite just before picking up party supplies, and the furnace has ceased. I really hope that didn't fucking bleed through. That was irritating, incredibly irritating. I was in ShopRite before, and there was a guy. I go in. I always have to take a piss. I urinate a lot. I think it's probably because I like to jerk off, a big masturbator, and I hydrate well. So those two things both cause you to have to piss a lot. And I go for a lot of walks, so it's constantly getting juggled around. So I'm at ShopRite, and I take a piss. I go in there, and it's all full. ShopRite employees really take advantage of that fucking bathroom, man. There's always one of them in there taking a shit. It's a 2-stall. Both of the stalls were closed up, and there was one at the urinal, and he had long since finished urinating, and just stood there and continued to have a phone conversation. It was like a Bluetooth phone conversation. The crux of which was that he was being scolded by his supervisor for spending too much time on the phone at work, which he felt was bullshit. He thought this was an inaccurate assessment, I guess, of his work performance. And I was thinking to myself, like tough argument to make here when I hear you on the phone at work while a customer waits to take a piss, and you're on the phone bullshitting about how your boss thinks you spend too much time on the phone. And then I realized, like, I looked at his sort of physical stature, and I considered the fact that he's in a town like Hoboken, a town of such success and achievement, and he's working at ShopRite, and appeared to be well past the age that one would consider working at ShopRite to be a reasonable profession. And this isn't, I realize that this can sound elitist, but it's not a shaming of someone for working at ShopRite. Like we've all worked jobs like that. I think, some to more of a degree than others. This was a total assessment of his character, part of which involves the ShopRite job. Ulysses S. Grant, former, president and leader of the armies of the North during the Civil War, he regularly had to do these menial jobs because he kept fucking things up, like blowing money, screwing up businesses, that just to feed himself, I think someone saw him on the street in like St. Louis, and he was selling sticks or lumber or something like that. And they were like, Grant, like, what the hell are you doing? And he said, solving the problem of poverty. So I understand that, people take jobs, but there's definitely a lot about this gentleman to to imply that perhaps he didn't pursue any areas of his existence with too much effort. And interestingly, he was speaking to, it sounded like he was talking to a woman on the phone, like a woman that he was irritated with, like he's in some sort of romantic relationship with her. And I was thinking, who is the woman that fucks this guy? That's always been interesting to me, is when you see a situation like that and you're like, there's a woman involved, like she's chosen to give. You have to understand that sex, if you get into like evolutionary psych and evolutionary biology, sex for a woman is, there's a greater biological cost to it, which is why it's harder for dudes to get laid. It's easier for a woman to get laid. Um, there are a lot of costs associated with a woman just, giving up access to her womb, her vagina, from an evolutionary perspective that hasn't been bred out of the human race yet. So the thinking still, the caveman thinking still applies. If you're going to have sex with this guy, he can go on and reproduce with any number of women in a given day. A woman can only really reproduce once in sort of a 9-month at minimum cycle, and then you go into all the other stuff like that. So there's a higher value biologically, to access to a woman's sexuality. And then you're sitting there pondering this and how it's fueled hundreds of thousands of years, and probably millions, I guess, of years of human evolution. And this guy's talking to a woman on the phone that it's disrespectfully, if I might add, kind of calling her a pain in the ass. And you're like, but still she fucks him. And it's fascinating, the choices that people make. It's very, very, very interesting. It's like when a really fun, gregarious guy is married to a total cunt. You're like, you could have done, better, had a happy life. But anyway, that's them. I wonder what they're up to. You almost wish sometimes like you could Pulp Fiction the world and see what everyone else's storyline looks like. We don't have that ability yet. Maybe when Musk puts one of these chips in us. What else? Heading into work this week. Since I pretty much always give you the Port Authority roundup, I may as well keep doing it. There was the same woman who was threatening to behead people last week was back. She's just in the Port Authority now every day, just walking around, standing, talking. There's no effort to remove them. It's almost like they're ghosts that haunt the place. And it's just like, yeah, well, you know what? That's what happens here at the old New York Port Authority. Like if you go and you stay at a bed and breakfast with a reputation for having ghosts, and you're getting up in the middle of the night to walk down the hall and use the bathroom, and you happen to run into a Victorian child who was drowned in a well, so be it. That you were there, you chose to be there. That's the deal. You knew it. I think that's really what's going on with the Port Authority now. You go in and there are homeless people. They're walking around. They're talking about beheading people. They're bathing in the sinks in the bathroom. And that is just part of the building. They live there now, and you choose to commute through their home. What else? There was another guy on 47th Street near my office. He was standing pantsless and crying, just bawling his eyes out in the middle of the sidewalk. This was like, it was like 1 PM, and not moving, just staying in one spot on the sidewalk as people maneuvered around him. That's the best part about all of this, is that this just goes on and people just maneuver around. Again, like it's part of the landscape, is this guy with no pants on, tall, big dude, dressed from the waist up too, and just bawling his eyes out. I don't know what happened to him, what was so sad, but he was just just crying like a fucking a baby. Actually, I forgot I had to pop these bad boys in too. I do have a video to watch coming up here. So yeah, that was commuting. What I would like to lead off with today, obviously, you guys know I'm a big football fan, and the NFL playoffs start this week, and obviously the Damar Hamlin hit was the talk of the country just this past week or so. So he got hit in the chest by T. Higgins and like went into cardiac arrest on the field, which obviously to a casual observer, and I think to anyone who has to go out and play after that, it's fucking terrifying. I don't know if I think to the rational fan who watches NFL football every week, I think it was, oh, this was going to happen eventually. Like this, I don't understand. I don't understand the shock at all of this. This felt like this has been coming for a while, and obviously it's fucking horrific. Horrific what happened. It's a young guy. To play in the NFL, you have to be really full of vigor and energy. So to see that taken away in an instant is really, it's a very shocking and sad thing. So I certainly understand that, but I don't understand. So I think some of the surprise surrounding it. It seems like it was a very sort of logical thing that if you've been watching NFL football for long enough, you would have said, yeah, we were going to see something like that happen eventually. And the fact that it hadn't happened sooner maybe is actually the bigger surprise. But anyway, given the sort of horrific nature of what did happen, it's drawn commentary from a lot of people who would not otherwise be talking about the game of football. Among them, Joy Behar and the old hens over at The View. Joy Behar rips heterosexual men for supporting tackle football. She is the fucking worst. What an old crank. I cannot stand Joy Behar. Here's The View talking about football. Let me go ahead and I'll share this. 1 second.
Right? I mean, my kid played football. He was recruited for college, and he got a terrible hamstring injury getting hit. And I saw him collapse to the ground. Thank you. And he went through physical therapy for 6 months. And he realized at that point, that could happen to my brain.
Right.
Yeah. And so he quit. And
he
quit. And it was a very hard thing for him because.
By the way, they're cheering. They're cheering because he quit. Do you realize how big of a pussy your son has to be to quit football over a pulled hamstring? And by the way, if your kid was a fucking stud and he was getting recruited to play college football, and there's not a fucking chance. There is not a fucking chance he was getting recruited to play college football and he quit over a pulled hamstring. You have to be a fucking savage to get recruited to play college football. Like, even at the Division III level, like, the guys that you play with are fucking nuts. It's just a jungle. Nobody is quitting over a pulled hamstring. Quitting football because of a fucking I pulled a hammy running track in college, and I believe that night, it's not a traumatic injury. It's an inconvenient injury. That night I was on crutches. My left leg was all blown up and black and blue in the back. And we went to, if I have any listeners out there from Eastern Pennsylvania, we went to a strip club called the Pleasure Dome up in the Poconos. It's a BYOB. and we were chugging Beast Ice and mingling with the Rust Belt's finest C-section scars. That's what you do after you blow a fucking hammy. You don't quit a sport because you fucking you popped a hammy. It's like an injury. You're out for like a couple months. It's got to heal, then you got to rehab it, then you got to get back to moving fast. Like, it's not a terrifying injury. These idiots they're applauding.
He loved doing it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to turn people away from the sport because, I mean, I went to Notre Dame. It's like faith, family, football. It's a big deal, and it's $105 billion industry.
Yeah.
So,
45.
That's follow the money, which, yeah, of course. It's a massive industry because it's fucking awesome. I think Behar is coming up here.
Percent of Americans think that tackle football is appropriate.
wow.
By the way, only 40%. I would love to know where the fucking numbers come from. Also, shout out to everyone in that the 40 percenters. If you fall outside of that, and I don't know how the question was asked, you're a fucking asshole. That's the only way to say it. Like, if you don't look, football is the greatest fucking game in the world. It is. I know baseball is our national pastime, but there are few things more American than a good old-fashioned, violent as fuck game of tackle football. Let's let Joy continue here.
Heterosexual men voted the most support for kids doing football, and conservatives were more likely to support youth tackle football. Just saying.
So I don't think it.
What are you just saying? That this proves the point that libs are a bunch of fucking pussies? I mean, like, I don't usually bring too much politics into this, but if she's going to sit there and essentially take the position for liberals that, oh yeah, it's mostly conservatives that like football, and what we can extrapolate from this, football is awesome. If you don't like football, you're a fucking pussy. If a self-proclaimed liberal here is saying that the liberal stance on football, which I don't know that it is, but she's saying it, is that tackle football is bad, then she is by default confirming the position that liberals are a bunch of pussies. And again, I'm not taking a political stance here, but this is where it comes from. This is why people think that liberals are a bunch of pussies. Anyway.
Will turn people away from consuming the sport because it is, as Sunny says, such a huge part of tradition.
In this country, yeah.
In this country. I grew up...
They're talking about it like it's racism or slavery or something, by the way. They're like, it's a big part of the tradition in this country.
Football was just the norm.
All right. Bunch of fucking... the rest of it I have here. I have the copy. I don't have the video. That fucking, what's the word I'm looking for? Grenade. Whoever the fuck she was about to say, I grew up in football was the norm. My parents went to the games long after we were even in high school because the whole town did. I love Friday Night Lights, etc., etc. What it might change is people that have kids coming up, because like me, you wouldn't have even known all the damage that could be done now. She was expressing concern over CTE, of course, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is basically, it's just when your head takes so many fucking shots that your brain swells up, and said that she wouldn't let her kids fall in love with football. Yeah, CTE is a neurodegenerative disease linked to head trauma that has befallen numerous players. Yeah, so I think loosely what happens is you get hit, you get concussions, whatever, you get concussed, your brain swells up, and then apparently that is very bad for your brain cells, and then I guess the apathy would regard some sort of degeneration of the tissue, so afterwards I guess it shrinks your fucking brain or whatever. I don't know. I wonder if they ever did they ever look at Junior Seau's brain? Because he shot himself in the heart because he wanted his brain preserved. which obviously, guys who play a career, it's very sad to see like a punch drunk fighter or a guy who played a full NFL career have these issues. But the other piece of that is you're only really seeing CTE at like the professional and Division I college level. And almost nobody is going to go on and play football at that level. Like, it's such a rarity. And it's something that you can do, like, it's special to you. That's not available to everyone. The average football player, I think if you play Pee Wee, high school, and maybe at a small college at the most, right? Like I got to play at Division III football, and I started playing football in Pee Wee. So I would say, my football playing career was longer than most people will ever get to do, and shorter than those extreme outliers. And I know, like, as a result, like, I have shitloads of friends who played college football. Like, over the course of 4 years in college, like, a few hundred guys. So far as I know, all of them are doing perfectly fine. We have yet to have a body as a result of something like that. Other things we've had, guys have, overdosed and guys have, pass away for other reasons, but not because of CTE. So I think and again, I'm not a fucking doctor, but in my kind of bro science-y opinion, I think what you're going to, the long-term studies on CTE, you'll find that it's really a professional level problem, Division I, too. But at the professional level, I think, because if your career extends another 5 years and it's 5 years of hits like that, I think that's probably what puts you over the edge. I'm not saying, look, that getting your head fucking wrong on a regular basis is the greatest thing in the world. But given all of the bad shit that we expose ourselves to on a regular basis, like if we're putting them up against each other, if I'm going to take a kid who plays a lifetime of football, goes from elementary school and maybe plays Division III college football, that versus like a kid who does the opposite and doesn't take care of his body and eats like an average American diet with kind of average American pursuits, I'd rather be the football kid. So yeah, there's an outside chance that something might happen to your dome, but you're going to live this vigorous, tough lifestyle where you learn all, how to deal with, failure and setbacks and literally pick yourself up off the ground and go through grueling practices and make connections with other people and be part of a team and all of the good shit that comes with that. And I think, Hassan said that she said her son described the bonding experience that he had never had before. And yeah, there's that trade-off between playing a semi-dangerous sport and having this incredible communal experience that most people will never get to enjoy. And I don't think it makes sense to abandon an entire sport because you can get hurt. Like, I think the better idea, actually, and let me get these fucking hens out of here. Get the fuck out of here. I think the better idea is to teach kids. I think it's better to teach kids young how to play the sport safely than it is to just throw them in there as like teenagers and grown men. And for grown men who do get to play the sport, the league minimum in the NFL is $300,000 or so. So if you play enough football to get CTE, you're being very well compensated for it. And that has to be part of the conversation, right? Like, as a grown man, do you have the right to play an incredibly dangerous sport if you feel that the financial compensation and the life that it will allow you to afford are worth it? And I think that I think most guys would, right? Like, I served in a combat zone for like 60,000. and I was making more than most guys in my unit because I was an officer, so I had a little rank. You get paid extra. People do all sorts of shit that is way, way more dangerous than tackle football, and they get paid way less money for it. So I think that when it comes to the NFL, that needs to be part of the conversation. And likewise with college, if you were not otherwise going to have a chance to go to college and get a degree and football gets you there, maybe you're willing, maybe that's a willing risk. Again, guys, do it for the fucking GI Bill. People work night shifts at convenience stores to afford college. People take risks to afford things that confer an advantage in this life. Of course, Joy Behar does not agree with any of this. She suggested that people play golf or tennis instead, as though those would be reasonable replacements for the thrill and exhilarating feeling that comes from running down and covering a kickoff. If you have never in your life run down and covered a fucking kickoff in a meaningful football game, there's no drug that can replace the fucking feeling of going down and making a fucking tackle on kickoff. Just one of the great things to do in the game of football. One of the most exciting things to do, an exciting play. It's just a 40-yard sprint and then you tackle someone. It's incredible. It really is. It is such a huge fucking rush. I honestly, scoring a touchdown is like, it's cool. And you're like, hey, maybe I'll get some pussy as a result of this. And intercepting a pass is up there, but that's more of like a, hey, like that's like fucking boss. Making a tackle on kickoff is just this incredibly visceral, exciting feeling, because you ran down 40 yards and tackled somebody. It's just fucking raw and primal, and it's fucking incredible. I would like, there are a handful of things I would love to be able to do athletically again, and running down and tackling someone on a kickoff is definitely up there. But she wants you to play tennis or golf. At least say rugby, right? Or like, wrestling or hockey or baseball or lacrosse, like vigorous team activities. Tennis and golf are generally the sports that are suggested for the pussies. I'll give you maybe a couple in that sphere, like a couple of like cool preppy rich kids on the team, but like everybody else playing those sports is doing it because they're just like a little bit of a bitch who wants to dodge injuries. Our punter in high school was on the golf team, but he was like a stellar golfer, and he's like a finance bro now. Like that's the kind of like cool guy that golfs. And then there were other guys on the golf team where you're just like, all right, you're like a dork or an Asian kid or something like that. I get why you're golfing. Yeah. If you're gonna play a racket sport or a sport like golf or croquet, then I think the more you can lean into the finance bro lifestyle, the better off you are, right? If you can develop a love for like whores and cocaine and fast cars and yachts, then I get it. Then go play tennis. Upgrade to racquetball though, I think, or squash. A little more intense, a little more physical. Squash is a motherfucker. I tried to play that a couple times. It fucking sucked. But yeah, we're not replacing football with tennis or golf. Fucking Behar. Anyway, I did mention butt plugs in the cold open, and so did the dean of a Chicago prep school. The dean of students at an elite $42,000 a year Chicago prep school has been filmed bragging about kids playing with dildos and butt plugs. A plug in class while getting tips on having queer sex. And I keep seeing these stories pop up where teachers are like, they're bragging about they're grooming kids on like libs of TikTok and on these other platforms. And I think what's happening is it's a bit of a premature celebration. Like Biden won, and I think that these idiots think that the floodgates are now open and America is just going to go down a path where it's all about, kid fucking and blood drinking. So they started celebrating before they crossed the goal line. Like fucking, you remember Leon Lett in the Super Bowl when the Cowboys blew out the Bills and Don Beebe knocked the fucking ball out of his hands? They teach a few kids in their art class about like double-ended dildos and felching, and all of a sudden, they're bragging about it like it's cool, and the next thing you know, fucking Project Veritas comes along and just fucking whacks Project Veritas, and it is very much the Don Beebe of this situation, just coming to knock the ball out of their hands at the goal line. Joseph Bruno was secretly filmed by Project Veritas talking about the Pride Week event at Francis W. Parker's school that included a visit by drag queen Alexis Bevels. I don't know why that's the drag queen's name. Isn't a drag queen supposed to have like a fun, cheeky name? Is Alexis Bevels is there something playful and fun to that? An LGBTQ plus health center came in and they were passing around butt plugs and dildos to my students, talking about queer sex, using lube versus using spit. In a classroom while I'm sitting there, Bruno said, noting it was for kids as young as 14. Why don't you take a seat right over there? Joseph Bruno was talking about kids having queer sex in the classroom. 37-year-old Joseph Bruno. I fucking love Hanson's podcast. Fucking rules, by the way. If you're a To Catch a Predator fan, definitely do yourself a favor and check out Predators I've Caught. Incredible show. He continues. They're just like passing around dildos and butt plugs. The kids are just playing with them, he said of the high schoolers. They're like, how does this butt plug work? How do you think it works? There has never been anything more evident than how a butt plug works. It is very clear how a butt plug works. You don't have to ask how a butt plug works. There's really only one way for a butt plug to work. It's right there in the name, and the conical shape tends to give it away. He said the drag queen who was there to pass out cookies and brownies and do photos. And we understand why people are weirded out about this kind of shit, right? Like health class used to be a gym teacher begrudgingly teaching a bunch of adolescents how a baby gets made. Now it's become one of those parties that women have where they buy lingerie and Hitachi wands. There is more in common with a few years ago for my buddy's birthday. We got some strippers to come to his apartment in Hoboken. We got 2 strippers to come in, and they played a game called Anal Ring Toss, where they stuffed a double-ended dildo in the one chick's ass, and we all took turns tossing rings onto the other end of the double-ended dildo, and then they took that out, and we put they had a dildo, a strap on that you could put on your head, and you could fuck the chick using your forehead. It was a lot of fun. That has more in common with the health class described here than my health class when I was going to school does with this health class. That was a very clunky way to describe that, but you get what I'm saying. Like time was, I remember back in the day, if you laughed or suggested anything to even hint at the idea that sex was fun during health class, you would get in a lot of trouble. Like they were really just there to go over the very basic mechanics, and there was sort of an understanding that this was not the place to talk about, like, the best technique for rimming your date. You know what I mean? Like, it's not home ec for sex. It's, hey, kids, this is how biological reproduction works. And by the way, if you put a penis into a vagina, this is the process that you're going to kick off. You're probably going to be tempted to do that soon. Here's the safe way to do it. All right. Like there was no, now we're going to spend the next hour teaching you how to lube up a butt plug and prepare the hole for penetration. Like that was not taken as a responsibility by the guy who was also teaching you how to play pickleball and do a 90-second flex arm hang or whatever the fuck the presidential physical fitness test was. I remember my dad got a call from the principal and Mr. Parsons because my friends and I used to stuff there was an anonymous question box, and we used to stuff the question box with anonymous questions about pegging, and we'd sit in the back of the classroom and you'd wait and you'd have to hear this fucking dope read a question about getting fucked in the ass with a strap on. It was very funny. It was also very obvious who was doing it. But the best part, they don't know until after the laughter, and they have to read it because they're like, there might be some like nervous guy in the, he's a teenager, he's struggling, we got to answer this for him. Like this is what happens when you invite this kind of thing. And then my friends dared me to write a bunch of off-colored jokes on the back of we had a written test. So under the extra credit tab on the back, I just wrote a bunch of very lewd jokes, like very like shitty fucking street jokes. Like if your Uncle Jack was stuck on a horse, would you help your Uncle Jack off the horse? So these were all these were all read to my father over the phone. I remember I got home from school and he was none too pleased. I believe he was woken up from a nap for it. He got a similar call about my brother who was running around hitting people with a massive inflatable penis. Good times. In the clip secretly filmed in a coffee shop, Bruno confirmed that he had not told trustees about the sex toy lesson, insisting he felt no need to because they would find it wonderful. That's a real cool part of my job. I don't have to worry about stuff like that, he was recorded as saying, bragging about how he had so much freedom and so much money to do stuff at the school. Yeah. You definitely don't want to be the guy who's caught on camera saying it's cool to teach kids about anal. Bruno refused to answer questions when Project Veritas chief James O'Keefe confronted him outside the school door, with the guerrilla journalist loudly calling out in front of the kids, "Sir, anal, butt plugs, and toys?" You wish. That's one of those things that you wish happened when you were in school. The closest I ever got to anything like that was when our athletic trainer got caught diking out with a chick on the soccer team. I was in 10th grade. And actually, the news broke on my birthday. It's a very celebratory day. But a guy showing up and shouting anal, butt plugs, and toys at one of at the principal, I guess, because this was the dean, so I guess for us it would have been the principal, on school grounds. I mean, that would have just been fucking legendary. Like, it would have been the best. And you hope that the kids have a sense of humor about this kind of shit, because it is going to be really confusing for these kids when they go to a frat party in a couple of years and they hook up with a chick and like things are getting steamy and they're waiting for a dildo brandishing drag queen to show up. Like, it's bad enough that the kids who are in college now have been jerking off to fucking step porn for their entire life. And, you know, they think a sexual experience involves walking in on someone who can't get themselves unstuck from a laundry machine. So you fuck them doggy style while they just sit there. Like, that's what college guys think sex is now, thanks to the internet. These kids, it's going to be even fucking worse. Like, if a guy doesn't show up with 10 pounds of makeup on and hand you a double-ended vibrating dildo, you're not going to know what to do with the chick that you took home from the Kappa Sig mixer. Just as Bruno predicted, the school stood by him, blaming the far-right activist group for having a twisted example of its inclusive LGBTQ plus affirming and comprehensive approach to sex education. Principal Dan Frank told parents that we are heartbroken that one of our colleagues' words have been severely misrepresented for a malicious purpose. Project Veritas edited this video with malicious intent, adding, we are sickened by the group's deceptive tactics. But I think what they're trying to grasp here is that you don't need to twist anything when you're telling someone that sex ed now includes a drag show and a dildo demonstration. Like, I don't think that porn and parents are the best people to teach kids about sex either, right? A lot of cases, your parents don't know what the fuck they're doing. If you were raised by boomers, you were raised by people who met, they were drunk at a bar when they met. I guarantee it. And they, they had very few sexual partners. So this was probably one of their first and most intense sexual relationships. I know you don't want to think about that about your fucking parents. It's disgusting, but it's true. And it resulted in kids in their early 20s. If you are the child of boomers, that's how it happened. So those people aren't the best people to teach you about fucking sex either, because frankly, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But public educators and a troupe of dildo brandishing drag queens are also not the answer. I don't think, taking a job that you took because you like having summers off doesn't qualify to you to teach kids about sex. I think the move is that you need to teach them about sex. You need to teach adolescents about the consequences of sex and sexual freedom and choice, boundaries, consent, all of this stuff. I think there needs to be a combination of mental health experts, people who professionally deal with STDs, people who deal with pregnancies. I think people who have worked in the adult film industry, probably actually a reasonable place to go, because they understand sex from a different sort of different perspective. People who have done sex work, basically across the board. Bring in fucking urologists, gynecologists, teach them shit. But don't just have the fucking guy who hands out inflatable red rubber balls so you can fucking throw them across a net for an hour. That guy probably shouldn't be the one to teach kids about fucking. Like, I think we can agree that. Like, I feel like apply that kind of pragmatism, it might be a little bit more comforting to those who do not want to see their kids being groomed and seduced during this little gender bending sex toy carnival that they were having. Okay. Oh my. Look at this tart cherry juice going. Let me take a breathe. This is an interesting double fist here. I got tart cherry juice, which fucking rules. Big time tart cherry juice guy. I got a cup of coffee going, because after this, I gotta lift weights, and then we're gonna fucking rage. We have a suspect in the Idaho murders. Let me get this creep up on the fucking screen. This guy. And you will find him to be a creep. You can't look at this fucking picture and not feel that this guy is a creep. Can't zoom in on that. Oh, well. I very much wish that they would, they need to come up with a better way to do this. How's this allowed? Yeah, see, I don't like that. That's too small and I'm hidden. That's too small. Then I'm gone. Now I've disappeared myself. There's that. That one's not great. Now you get back to sharing. There it is. Yeah, they got to come up with a better format for this fucking thing. Anyway. If you're listening to the audio feed, you're bored as shit. And frankly, if you were watching me do that on video, you're probably pretty fucking annoyed too. Anyway, here's the suspect in the Idaho murders. Let me pull the mic a little closer. Brian Koberger, a law student and total creep from Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, which is it's about halfway between Allentown, where I went to college, and Scranton, which is home, of course, to the Dunder Mifflin Paper Company and Scranton University. And I guess what happened is they combined a series of things like car surveillance footage from a gas station. So they knew they were looking for a white Hyundai, I believe, cell phone pings, and then DNA from a garbage can outside of his parents' home. And he left a knife sheath at the scene from which they were able to pull some DNA. So then they tracked him to his parents' home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. And he was a student out at the University of Washington, which is right over the border. I think it was like 10 miles away. He was studying criminology. And it's interesting because so as they were surveilling him, they knew they were going to arrest him. His father had flown out from Pennsylvania to drive home across the country with him. And I mean, what a thing to think. Whenever I think about these cases, like that's one of the things that I think about. Like, you wonder if the father had any clue what was going on. Like, you know, that ride, if you've ever done a long ride home from college, just a long road trip or whatever, you know, it's like a time to you do a lot of thinking when you're on the road. And if there's something that's weighing heavily on you, it'll often kind of circle in your head while you're in the car. And you wonder what the feeling was like inside of that vehicle. Like, did the fucking father have any clue what was going on? Was his son like, hey, you know, because obviously that school's near where his kid goes to school. This is a guy with a kid in grad school studying criminology on the other side of the country. Like, this is kind of a normal American family, it almost feels like. You just wonder what the vibe in the car was at that time. That's a few weeks after the murders in early November, and they got pulled over along the way. And it's believed that what was going on was that the FBI asked local cops to pull him over so that they could, I guess, get a look at his hands to see if on body cam footage, if there were any wounds, like stab wounds or bite marks or anything, you know, defensive wounds to his hands. I guess because the idea being that, you know, those are going to go away over time. If you remember the Brian Laundrie case, they were saying that one of the things that could lead to him being exonerated if he ever got arrested was that you wouldn't be able to prove that he had a physical altercation with his girlfriend because the wounds would heal with time and they wouldn't be able to enter them as there'd be no evidence of it. but apparently he thought he was being very careful, or apparently so it feels like he methodically planned this, and then kind of fucked up. And because after the murders, they say he was wearing gloves like everywhere so that nobody could get a DNA grab from him. Like he was going to the grocery store still wearing gloves, etc. Because I guess he dropped his knife sheath, like the thing that he held the knife in. So he must have just been waiting for the other shoe to drop, like leaving a very key and obvious piece of evidence at the scene of the crime. So eventually they surveilled him to his parents' house, and they got him. They got him in a late night raid, which is, again, it's just wild. Like, I don't feel bad for the guy at all. But can you imagine being, you're home, like you're celebrating Christmas with your family? Maybe if you've gone home for a college break before, you know the deal. Like you spend a lot of time just kind of lounging on the couch, you're watching TV. You see your old high school buddies. You go down to a hometown bar, whatever it is. All the while, this guy's doing this like he's at the local dive. He sees some chick from his high school physics class that he wanted to fucking finger back when he was 15. He's trying to have like that whole like catch up conversation with her, and he's just waiting for the fucking cops to show up. Because if you left that sheath there, and you're a criminology major, if you're just an average Joe, you may be like, well, maybe there was nothing. That's not a whole lot. But if you're a criminology guy, like, you know exactly what they need to get you. And you're like, yeah, they fuck it. That's why he's walking around wearing fucking gloves at the grocery store. So he is probably at that point, he has probably spent the last like month and a half just trying to think through every end of the planning and execution of the crime, trying to figure out what other fuck ups he made that are going to be used against him. Because now once you have the one, it's just a thread that you're going to pull, and you're like, what the fuck? Like he's sitting on his couch in Pennsylvania, just kind of nervously watching Elf, eating cookies. Every once in a while, the news flashes something about like the murder killers all over the fucking news. You can't go online, can't go on Twitter without seeing. He's engaging in conversations about it on Reddit and Facebook, allegedly. So this is just top of mind the whole time he's there at his parents' house for the fucking holidays. He's thinking about, all the times that he went to conduct like pre-murder surveillance. If he left traces of himself, they're saying that he left like there were a shitload of cell phone pings from him in the area, like a dozen leading up to the crime. So it's like there's clear evidence that he was there scouting the fucking place out. And I guess the way it went down is that one of the roommates actually ran into him as he was making his way out of the house. She hears a noise. She said, I guess she thought she heard like a thud and some whimpering. She goes out into the hall to see what's going on. This guy runs by her, at which point she hides in her room, and she's probably like, I'm just going to barricade in here until the coast is clear. Which, like that's probably for a 20-year-old college woman, you would think that's a pretty reasonable response, right? Like she has no idea that a brutal murder has just taken place. Like in her head, the guy's hauling ass out of the house. He's a robber, some other kind of home invader, drunk college guy, whatever. It's Idaho, it's meth country. People break in to houses to steal shit that they can pawn for drugs. It's a college campus. There's kind of odd, weird shit going on all the time. So her move might very well be, let me just hide until the coast is clear. I'm not going to make any noise. She doesn't get on the phone. It's just like, pretend there's nobody in here. Door is locked. Like, I kind of get that. And then eventually, she falls asleep. She wakes up. Okay, it's the next day. go check in on the roommates, and that's when you make that horrific discovery. And it kind of makes you think, like, whenever you watch a serial killer documentary, a lot of times there's that initial witness, like that first person who, like, there's a survivor, a person who saw him, or like, a woman who was hitchhiking and some guy tried to yank her into the car. There's always someone who came face to face with the guy before he went on the multi-state killing spree. And this, to me, this really does beg the question of what I've been thinking about maybe the most about this since the story broke is, one, was this a serial killer in the making? This doesn't feel, based on his activity, the way he did this, and all the internet activity where he's been allegedly like commenting on shit, and his just general vibe. It feels like this was either the start of a serial killer's career, or he has other bodies somewhere that we don't know about yet, human or animal, is what I have to think. So we'll keep following it. I'm very curious to see how this case unfolds. But let me stop sharing that. Let me put these proud Inuit women back on the screen while I go ahead and bring things down here. Take my last sip of tart cherry juice for the show. Remind you guys to check out the stream at Mike's Golden Streams on YouTube. Tell your friends about it. You search Sacktap Live or at Mike's Golden Streams, should pop right up. The other socials, Facebook.com/The Savage Crew, Twitter at Mike Montone, Instagram at Gary_Moyler, Moyler, and MeatheadMedia.com for all your poop reading needs. And again, I will likely, I believe, be pre-recorded next week. There should be some lives coming up, but we got it is a socially busy season, so that's that. Have a good weekend, guys, and adios, motherfuckers.